The Supreme Court last week struck a momentous blow for the Constitution and individual liberty when it overturned a dreadful decision it made back in 1984. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. A few days ago, in a related pair of rulings, the Supreme Court struck down a 1984 decision, Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council, that massively and dangerously increased the powers of government agencies, making them all too often a law unto themselves. It granted these entities enormous powers to write rules and regulations without congressional approval. As bad, what came to be called the Chevron Deference meant that if there was any ambiguity or question about what a law meant, courts would have to defer to the supposed expertise of the agency. Government bureaucracies would decide what a piece of legislation meant, not the courts. Judicial challenges were thereby extremely difficult. It was a license for bureaucracies to invent their own authority. Chevron ended up being an assault on the Constitution's separation of powers. It led to egregious abuses. For instance, to extend their powers, regulators defined navigable waters as ponds, creeks, and even mud puddles. Individuals became easy targets because they didn't have the resources to fight the federal government. The Chevron deference blatantly ignored Article 3 of the Constitution, which empowers the courts to determine what the law says. Chevron undermined the historic powers of Congress. Presidents who couldn't get proposals through the national legislature increasingly turned to federal agencies to enact them instead. The result has been a blizzard of regulations and executive orders. President Biden, for example, wants to ultimately banish the internal combustion engine for cars and trucks. Congress never passed any such prohibition, and never would because of intense public opposition. The EPA, however, is doing it instead. The list of abuses is enormous and getting worse. Regulators now cost the economy over an unfathomable $3.5 trillion a year. And to its eternal shame, Congress too often went along with this neutering of its responsibilities by passing ambiguous bills and letting agencies take the heat for any controversy, passing the buck and undermining the Constitution. Chevron also bred inconsistency, as a new administration might change the rules of a previous one. Defenders of Chevron say it would gut regulations concerning health, the environment, aircraft safety, and the like. That's nonsense. The Supremes made crystal clear the difference between expertise, say, in aircraft safety versus interpreting laws. Government agencies, like the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, have no special competence in resolving statutory ambiguities. That's the job for the courts. The Chief Justice also made a crucial point that specific decisions made under Chevron are not automatically undone. They have to be challenged. And this is where the upcoming election is so important. Will we have a president who will continue to act in a dictatorial manner, regardless of what the Supreme Court rules on various cases? Just look at how the White House flouts the decision concerning Biden's canceling student debt. The president continues to do it. So the Chevron case, throwing that precedent out, is extremely important. Let's hope we have a new president who respects what courts rule. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.